The alarm cuts through the training dome before I even open my eyes, and I am already moving before I understand why. My name is Daniel Ferris, and 3 months ago I was the least impressive recruit in the entire Coalition fleet. Today I am standing in front of a creature twice my height, with plated skin the color of wet stone, and eyes that have watched 1,000 species fail in front of him. His name is Vorkath Sel, Supreme Field Commander of the AstralVanguard War Assembly, and he has just called my species pathetic to my face. I did not come here for approval. I came here because Earth was invited to join the Coalition after decades of watching from the outside, and someone had to prove we belonged. That someone turned out to be me, and 4 other humans who did not know each other a year ago, and now trust each other with our lives. Vorkath walks the line of recruits like a butcher inspecting meat that has already gone bad. He stops in front of me last, tilting his head the way a predator studies something too small to be worth the effort. "Human," he says, and the translator in my ear flattens the venom in his voice into something almost calm. "Your species trains like it already expects to lose everything. Why prepare for defeat before the fight has even started?" I do not answer him right away. I have learned that silence sometimes says more than words, especially in front of someone who has never had to use silence as a weapon. He does not wait for my answer anyway. He moves on, already bored, already certain of how this evaluation will end. The truth is, I understand why he thinks that. Every other species in this coalition was built for war. The Threlvans have plated skin that turns aside blades. The Karun have 6 limbs and reflexes twice as fast as ours. The Ashenwing have hollow bones and can glide across battlefields human legs could never cross. Humans have none of that. We have soft skin, slow reflexes by galactic standards, and bodies that break if you look at them wrong. What we have instead is something Vorkath has not learned to measure yet. The evaluation begins with individual drills, the kind meant to expose weakness before it costs lives in real combat. I watch a Karun soldier complete an obstacle course in half the time it takes me, his 6 limbs moving in a rhythm that looks more like a machine than an animal. I watch an Ashenwing scout glide silently over a chasm that would have taken me 10 minutes to climb around. Every species here does something my body simply cannot do. But then something changes. The obstacle course throws an unscheduled variable into the mix, something none of the recruits were briefed on. A section of the course floods with a thick, slow-moving gas, harmless but disorienting, meant to simulate an unexpected environmental hazard. The Karun soldier stops completely. His entire training is built around a sequence, a pattern drilled into his nervous system since birth. When the pattern breaks, he freezes, waiting for new instructions that do not come. I do not stop. I do not know what the gas is, and for a second my chest tightens with something close to fear, but I keep moving anyway, because stopping has never been an option my life allowed me. I feel my way through it, one hand on the wall, counting my steps, breathing slow, and I come out the other side coughing but standing. Vorkath watches this from an observation platform above us. I see him lean forward slightly, just for a moment, before catching himself and straightening again. He says nothing, but I notice it. I notice everything about him now, because his opinion of us will decide whether Earth stays in this coalition or gets sent home in shame. That evening, the recruits eat together in the shared mess hall, a strange mixture of species none of us expected to share a meal with a year ago. Grace Whitmore, one of the 4 other humans on this assignment, sits across from me, her arm still wrapped from a minor injury she got hours earlier during a joint exercise. "He hates us," she says, not looking up from her food. "Vorkath. He looks at us like we're an insult to the whole coalition." "He doesn't hate us," I say. "He just doesn't understand us yet." Same thing, from where I'm sitting. I do not argue with her, because I understand where the frustration comes from. Every day, we are compared to species built by evolution and centuries of warrior culture to be perfect instruments of combat, and every day we come up short in the numbers that matter to someone like Vorkath. Speed, strength, endurance measured in raw physical terms. But there is a number Vorkath has not learned to measure, and I do not think he even knows it exists yet. The next morning, a different test begins, one designed to simulate a medical emergency in the field. A recruit from each species is injured, not seriously, but enough to require immediate attention, using whatever is available in a combat environment with no proper equipment. The Threlvan medic waits by his kit, unwilling to improvise past his training, insisting the proper tools must be brought before treatment can begin. Minutes pass. The simulated injury, according to the evaluators, would have cost a real soldier his life in that time. I do not wait for proper tools. Neither does Grace. She rips a strip of fabric from her own uniform, presses it against the wound of a recruit from another species entirely, someone she has known for only a few weeks, and improvises a rap using nothing but instinct, and the basic first aid drilled into every human recruit since childhood. It is not elegant, it is not textbook, but the simulated patient survives, and the AstralVanguard medics does not. Vorkath reviews the results in silence that afternoon. I am not in the room, but Owen Bradley, the youngest human on our team, tells me later that Vorkath asked the same question 3 times to the same officer, as if he could not believe the answer the first 2 times. Why did the human act before the equipment arrived? The officer's answer, according to Owen, was simple. Because humans are trained to act with nothing, not just with everything. Vorkath does not come to speak to us that day. He watches from a distance instead, arms crossed, expression unreadable behind plated skin that does not shift the way human faces do. I catch him watching me specifically during a team exercise later that week, when our squad is asked to navigate hostile terrain using only a map, with several key sections deliberately missing. Every other squad hesitates at the missing sections, waiting for clarification that the evaluators refuse to give. My squad does not hesitate. We split into pairs, cover more ground, communicate constantly, and fill in the missing sections through observation and shared judgment rather than perfect information. We finish the exercise nearly an hour ahead of every other team. Vorkath approaches me directly for the first time since the initial insult, 3 days before the final evaluation. His voice carries less certainty now, though I do not think he realizes it yet. Your training makes no logical sense, he says. You are not the strongest. You are not the fastest. Yet you continue to solve problems that stronger, faster species cannot. We're not trained to be strong, I say. We're trained to keep going when strength runs out. He studies me for a long moment, the kind of silence that used to make me nervous but no longer does. Explain. Every species here was built by nature or by breeding to be excellent at war, I say. You've never had to imagine losing everything, because your bodies were designed to prevent it. Humans never had that luxury. Every war we've ever fought, we fought without claws, without armor, without natural advantages, so we learned to adapt faster than anything could evolve. We trained our minds instead of our bodies, because our minds were the only weapon nobody could take away from us. He does not respond right away. For the first time since I met him, Vorkath's cell looks like he is thinking rather than judging. That is not strength, he finally says. That is desperation. Maybe, I say. But desperation that's trained for centuries starts to look a lot like discipline. He walks away without another word, and I do not know if I have convinced him of anything. I only know that something in his certainty has cracked, even if he refuses to admit it. The final evaluation arrives on a cold morning, under a sky the color of ash on this training world, built specifically for testing coalition recruits under conditions no single species could dominate easily. The scenario is announced only minutes before it begins, giving no one time to prepare specifically for it. Total systems failure, no weapons, no communications, no command structure. Every recruit dropped into hostile terrain with nothing but what they are wearing, forced to survive, adapt, and complete an objective using only their training and their instincts. I feel my heart pounding as the countdown begins, not from fear exactly, but from the weight of knowing this is the moment that decides everything. Every species has trained for war. Very few have trained for nothing. The simulation begins, and the terrain itself feels almost alive. Jagged rock formations rising out of thick fog, uneven ground that punishes every careless step, and a temperature that drops steadily as the exercise continues. My squad regroups within minutes, using hand signals we developed ourselves outside of any formal training program, communicating without a single word. Other squads do not fare as well. The Karun team, stripped of the synchronized command structure their entire species depends on, scatters and struggles to reform without a designated leader giving precise instructions. The AstralVanguard team, trained to overwhelm enemies with raw physical force, finds nothing to overwhelm in an empty, silent landscape that offers no clear enemy to fight. My squad moves differently. Grace takes point, not because she was assigned to, but because she reads terrain better than the rest of us. Owen tracks our direction using nothing but the position of a distant, unfamiliar star cluster, something he taught himself as a hobby years before any of this began. We do not wait for orders. We do not wait for permission. We simply move, adapt, and keep moving. Halfway through the exercise, the simulation throws its hardest challenge at us. The objective marker, the point we are meant to reach to complete the exercise, sits at the top of a steep formation guarded by an automated defense system designed to simulate a hostile encounter without causing real harm, testing reaction, teamwork, and improvisation under pressure. Every squad before us either turns back or attempts to force their way through using strength and speed, tactics that work for exactly 0 of them. I watch through the observation feed later and see squad after squad get turned away. Their approach too rigid, too dependent on abilities the simulation has neutralized. My squad does something different. We spend nearly 20 minutes simply observing the pattern of the defense system before making a single move, something none of the other squads bothered to do. Patience, in a galaxy full of species bred for speed and aggression, turns out to be a weapon nobody prepared for. Once we understand the pattern, we do not try to overpower it. We work around it, using the terrain itself as cover, taking turns advancing while the others hold position. Exactly the kind of coordination we drilled into ourselves during hundreds of hours of training back on Earth that Vorkath once called primitive. We reach the objective marker with time to spare, the only squad in the entire evaluation to do so without triggering a single failure condition. I expect the exercise to end there. It does not. A final phase activates without warning, one that was never explained in the official briefing. The evaluators call it a leadership assessment, a one-on-one scenario between a chosen recruit and Vorkath Cell himself, testing composure and decision-making under direct pressure from the single most experienced combat mind in the Coalition. I am chosen, and I do not know if it is an honor or a punishment. The scenario places me in a confined arena, stripped of every advantage, facing Vorkath in a controlled, non-lethal simulation, designed to test reaction and judgment rather than raw combat ability. He is faster than me. He is stronger than me. Every physical measurement favors him completely, and he knows it. I do not try to match his strength. I know I cannot, and pretending otherwise would be the fastest way to lose. Instead, I use the confined space itself, forcing him to commit to movements that cost him balance and positioning in an arena too tight for his full advantages to matter. I let him believe he has the upper hand, drawing him into a rhythm, before shifting my footing at the last possible moment and using his own momentum against him in a way that ends the confrontation without a single real strike landing. The arena goes still. Vorkath stands there for a long moment, plated chest rising and falling, staring at me with an expression I cannot quite translate, somewhere between disbelief and something close to respect. "You did not win through strength," he finally says. "No," I answer. "I won because I trained for the moment strength wouldn't be enough." He does not respond immediately. Around us, the observation platform has gone completely silent. Coalition officers from a dozen species watching a result none of them expected. That evening, Vorkath requests to speak with me privately, something he has never done before with any recruit under evaluation. I meet him in a quiet section of the training dome, away from the noise of the mess hall and the celebration my squad is currently enjoying without me. "Explain something to me," he says. "Every species in this coalition trains to be the strongest version of itself. Your species trains as if it expects to be the weakest in every room it enters. Why would any species choose that?" I think about how to answer him honestly, because I know this conversation matters more than any physical test we have completed so far. Because we've never had a choice, I say. Every war humans ever fought, we fought as the underdog. No claws, no armor, no natural advantage over anything trying to kill us. So instead of training our bodies to be the strongest, we trained our minds to survive when strength failed. We trained for the day everything perfect breaks down, because for us, that day always comes eventually. Vorkath is quiet for a long time after that, longer than I have ever seen him stay silent. "My species has never lost a war in 3,000 years, he finally says. "We have never needed to imagine losing everything." "That's not an advantage," I say. "That's a blind spot, and blind spots are the only thing that can beat a species like yours." He studies me for a moment, and something shifts behind his eyes, something I recognize because I have felt it myself during the hardest weeks of training. The moment certainty gives way to understanding. "I mocked your training because I did not understand it," he says. "I see now that I mocked the one thing that might keep this entire coalition alive when something eventually breaks our advantages the way it broke ours today." I do not gloat. I do not need to. I simply nod, because I understand exactly what it costs a commander like him to admit something like that out loud. The following week, Coalition Command announces a new doctrine, one that places at least one human squad within every major combat unit across the fleet, not as a symbolic gesture, but as a required contingency measure. Vorkath himself recommends it personally, a fact that spreads through the coalition faster than any official announcement could have managed on its own. Grace finds me afterward, grinning in a way I have not seen since we arrived here months ago. "Guess we're not the weak link anymore," she says. "We were never the weak link," I say. "We were just the part of the plan nobody else understood yet." I think about Vorkath's words often after that day, about a species that has never lost, and what that kind of certainty costs in the long run. Every other species in this coalition trained to be perfect at the war they expected to fight. Humans train for the war nobody expects, the one where everything perfect eventually fails, and all that remains is a person, their training, and the will to keep moving anyway. Being underestimated was never something we needed to overcome. It was always the plan.